He found a map in a secret compartment. It led to a world that doesn't exist. A man bought an antique sea captain's chest, hoping to find a hidden treasure, but what was inside wasn't gold or jewels. It was a map to a world that doesn't exist. But before we start our story, make sure you're subscribed if you haven't already and hit that notifications bell so you won't miss any of our new stories. Mark loved history, not the big, famous battles or the kings and queens. He loved these small, forgotten stories, the lives of ordinary people. On weekends, he would go to estate sales, looking for objects that had a story to tell. One Saturday, he found himself at an old house on the coast. The house had belonged to a reclusive old man, and it was filled with maritime antiques. And in the corner of the dusty living room, Mark saw it, a 19th-century sea captain's chest. It was beautiful. Mark bought it for a good price. He wasn't expecting to find treasure. He just wanted a beautiful piece of history for his home. He loaded the heavy chest into his truck and drove home, happy with his find. It was back at his house that he first noticed something strange. After he had taken everything out, he tried to move the chest. It was incredibly heavy, far heavier than an empty wooden box should be. The stories he'd read as a child, tales of pirates and hidden treasures, suddenly felt very real. His fingers fumbled as he tried to lift the heavy wooden panel. It was a perfect fit. He finally managed to get his fingertips under the edge and pry it up. It was heavy, solid. He lifted it out and set it on the floor. He peered into the secret compartment beneath, and his initial excitement turned to confusion, maybe even a little disappointment. There were no gold coins, no jewels, no old letters tied with a ribbon, and nestled inside were two things: a stunning set of antique brass tools and a single, large, rolled-up object. He carefully lifted the tools out. They were beautiful, intricate. There were compasses, strange curved rulers, and other drafting instruments he didn't recognize. They were clearly custom-made. But what would a sea captain be doing with tools for drawing? He then reached for the other object. It was a map, a huge, incredibly detailed, hand-drawn map. The craftsmanship was breathtaking, the lines were perfect, the colors were still vibrant. But as he looked closer, his confusion deepened. The coastline was unfamiliar, the mountain ranges were in the wrong places, and the names were written in a strange, elegant script. He stood up and walked over to his globe. He searched for any landmass that matched the map. Nothing. He pulled out a world atlas. He spent the next hour comparing the map to every known island and continent on Earth. There was no match. He was staring at a beautiful, impossible map, a map of a world he had never seen, a map of a world that didn't exist. Mark spent the rest of the weekend obsessed. He took high-resolution photos of the map. He scanned them into his computer. He cross-referenced every coastline, every mountain peak with satellite, imagery, and ancient nautical charts. Nothing. The island did not exist. It was a phantom, a beautiful, intricate, impossible place. This isn't a map of our world, he thought. So, what world is it? Is it a joke? A fantasy? The detail is too incredible. He knew he needed an expert. But who do you call about a map to nowhere? He decided to start with the chest itself. He contacted a maritime historian from the local university, an expert on 19th-century artifacts. The next day, the historian, a woman named Dr. Albright, came to his house. She admired the chest. "A beautiful piece," she said. "Late 1800s, almost certainly. The craftsmanship is superb." She examined it closely, running her expert eye over every detail. And then she found something Mark had missed. On one of the brass hinges, there was a tiny, almost invisible maker's mark. "That's it, Doctor," Albright said, a look of sudden realization on her face. "I've seen this mark before. It's not a shipbuilder's mark. It's a personal crest. It belonged to the author, Alistair Finch." The name hit Mark like a thunderbolt. Alistair Finch, the reclusive, genius author who had lived in this very town a century ago. The man who wrote The Sunstone Chronicles, one of the most beloved fantasy series of all time. Finch was obsessed with the sea. "Doctor," Albright explained, "he often wrote under the pen name The Captain. This wasn't a real sea captain's chest, Mark. This was his chest. It was a prop, a source of inspiration." The truth began to dawn on Mark, beautiful and shocking. He looked back at the map, the Dragon's Tooth Mountains, the Whispering Sea, the Silver City of Eridor. They weren't places on Earth. They were the legendary locations from The Sunstone Chronicles. He wasn't holding a map of a lost island. He was holding a map of a lost world, an imaginary world. He knew he had to contact the Alistair Finch Literary Estate. The next day, he found himself sitting in a university library across from the world's foremost Finch scholar. He carefully unrolled the leather map. The scholar fell silent. His eyes went wide. He leaned over the map, his hands trembling slightly. "It can't be," he whispered. "We thought this was lost forever." He explained the truth. This wasn't just a map of Finch's world. This was the map. The original, hand-drawn master copy. The one from which all the published maps were just simplified copies. This map contained a level of detail that was staggering. Entire cities, secret ruins, and hidden paths that had never been revealed in the books. It was the key, a document that could unlock the deepest secrets of Finch's universe. And the strange brass tools? The scholar recognized them from descriptions in Finch's private letters. They were his custom-made world-building instruments, not just for drafting, for creating a world. There were tools for calculating the cycles of the world's 2 fictional moons, tools for designing the architecture of his elven cities, even tools for creating miniature models of his famous ships. It was the author's secret toolkit, the very instruments he used to build a universe. The discovery was a sensation, not in the world of treasure hunting, but in the world of literature. The map was hailed as a priceless piece of literary history, the fantasy equivalent of finding Leonardo da Vinci's lost sketchbook. It sparked a massive global revival of interest in Alistair Finch's work. The map and tools are now the centerpiece of a special exhibit at the university library. Millions of fans have come to see them, to look upon the true heart of a world they had loved their entire lives. Mark often visits the exhibit. He watches people stare at the map in awe. He had bought an old sea chest, hoping for a simple piece of history. Instead, he found something far more magical. He hadn't found a pirate's treasure of gold and jewels. He had found an author's treasure of dreams and imagination. He gave millions of fans a piece of their favorite story they never knew existed.